Hey guys, we're here for another real estate market update for the Edmonton area using the most recent statistics available from the REALTORS Association of Edmonton. They just released the statistics package looking at essentially the sales data for April. So we're just at the beginning of May now. So I thought I'd show you guys this package. They get theirs ready a little bit sooner than I can get my infographic package done. So we'll review theirs and then I can always supplement it with another video in the future. So let's jump right in. This is going to have two sections. It's actually kind of going to go back and forth. I'm going to switch between looking at the greater Edmonton area and just Edmonton on its own. Greater Edmonton, if you look at the bottom of this infographic, you can see that it includes Beaumont, Bonaccord, Bruderheim, Kalmar, Devon, Edmonton, Fort Saskatchewan, Gibbons, Leduc, Legal, Morinville, New Sarepta, Redwater. There's a whole bunch of other places there, but you get the idea. It includes like basically everything around Edmonton. So that's considered the greater Edmonton area. And then the other set is just looking at just Edmonton. So we'll start with the residential statistics for the greater Edmonton area. And you can see that for all residential, which that includes all property types. So single family homes, condos, duplex, townhouse, everything. So it just kind of throws it all together. The average selling price in April was $417,000, which is up just a little bit from last month, 0.7%, and up 7.1% from last year. Now, if you watched my last video where I was focused on single family homes in Edmonton, I talked about how the market appears to be sort of flattening out a little bit. There's not nearly as much upward pressure on the prices, like it's still a seller's market, but I definitely saw a big shift in April where we got a lot more inventory coming on the market and the sales volume actually dropped, as you'll see later on in the video here. And that just goes to show that that's what's going to drop your price acceleration. So we still had a slight gain from last month, but nothing crazy like what we had a couple months before. So now if we look at the median price for all residential, it was $397,000, which is also up just modestly 0.4% from last month and up 7.2% from last year. Now if we look at the single family homes, the average sales price was $511,000. Which is up 1.4% from last month and 11.4% from last year. And then if we look at the median prices, the median is the midpoint, whereas the average can get skewed by high-priced homes and low-priced homes, depending on the balance of what's selling. So the median was $466,000. And that's actually technically down a little bit from last month, down 0.4%, and up 9.6% from last year. If we look at condos, the average price was $237,000, which according to this is actually down 3.2% from last month, but still up from last year, 3.7%. So there might have been some more expensive condos that were selling last month. Now the median was at $220,000, which is also down 2.2% month over month and up 3% from last year. So you can see just from that, like the condos are not performing nearly as well as single family homes. I've definitely seen a shift in condos in the last few months. Where we've started to lower our inventory a little bit and increase our sales volume, but there's a lot more people listing their condos too. So condo market, you still have to be pretty realistic if you're selling. Now for duplexes and row houses, the average price was $409,000, which was up 5.2% month over month and up 17.8% year over year. And the median was $387,000, which was up 1.8% month over month and up 14.7% year over year. Now, if we just look at the new listings, we had some more inventory coming on the market this month than we did last month with 4,719, which is up 11.9% month over month. And so far this year, we've had 14,000 new listings, which is more than we had last year. So that's up 8.8%. Now, if we go and look at the sales in the current month, which is April, there was 2,919 sales, which was actually down 10.9%. Now, this is probably the biggest surprise from everything in this report. And I had an inkling that this was happening. I hadn't looked really closely at the stats as the month was going on in April, but I just noticed it didn't seem to be as intense and that our inventory levels were creeping up. So I kind of wondered what our sales volume looked like. And we essentially peaked our sales volume in March. So far, we'll have to see what happens in May, but our actual sales volume dropped in April, which is a little weird. So we had less sales volume in April than we did in March, whereas if you would have asked me a month ago, I probably would have assumed we would have had more sales in April, especially since we actually had more listings this month and our inventory is up a little bit. You can't really use the argument that sales were hurt by there not being enough inventory. So that should have allowed more sales to happen, but instead a little bit less sales happen. So some of the big things that are affecting this are interest rates. So we had several interest rate hikes that have happened so far, especially for 5-year fixed rates. Those have gone up quite a bit. We're now sitting at most lenders being at around 4% or even over 4% now, which is pretty crazy increase from where we were just at a few months ago even. So a lot of people that had their rate holds, they had a good rate before, that motivated them to get out there and buy a house. And some people still have pretty good rate holds that were better than definitely what you can get now. And I imagine those people will be motivated to still go and find something instead of getting locked into a higher rate. But that is starting to have an impact on the market. I never really knew exactly how much that was going to impact the market, but the fixed rates have gone up a lot faster than anticipated. And they do expect the variable rate to keep going up. The Bank of Canada has already raised it 50 basis points the last time they met. And more than likely in June, a lot of people are projecting that they probably will do another 50 basis points hike as well. So right now, if you didn't have a locked in rate or a mortgage rate hold with a lender, it certainly makes the variable rate look a lot more attractive right now. But if depending on when you got your rate hold, there's not as much of a gap between what you could get on a variable rate and what your rate hold is. So for those people, I could see I definitely saw a few clients that went with their rate hold instead of the variable rate, especially if you just assumed that the variable rate might go up another % here over the next year. So that's one of the things I think's definitely been affecting the sales volume. I'm going to be keeping an eye on that in May to kind of see what happens. Maybe we just had a bit of a lull. It was still a strong market overall for April. It was just less than last month and a little bit less than last year too, I believe. So if we look at the year-to-date numbers, we're still up so far for how many sales have happened this year. We had 9,779 sales this year, which is up 2%. Our inventory is sitting at 6,468 at the end of April, essentially, for the greater Edmonton area. Over here, they're just showing some high rollers, like what were the most expensive single-family home that sold was $5,150,000. The most expensive condo was $1 million, and the most expensive duplex row house was $1,545,000. Now, if we go and look at the days on market, you can see that they basically have this broken up into this year and last year. So stuff is moving faster this year than it did last year, with 23 days average on market compared to 30 days for single family homes. And we've also seen an improvement in how fast condos are selling, with 45 days this year compared to 54 days last year. So we'll see if we can keep that up and hopefully lower that a little bit more for you condo owners out there. For duplex row houses, we're sitting at 24 average days on market this year, and we were at 35 last year. And then if you just kind of throw that all together, we're at 31 days for the year versus 37 days last year. Now, if we switch to just looking at the same group of statistics for the city of Edmonton, you'll see that the average price was $412,000, which is up 0.6% month over month and up 5.9% year over year. So again, we did see a slight gain in the average single family. Well, this is all residential. We did see a slight gain for the average selling price in Edmonton compared to March, but not nearly as big of a jump as what we saw from February to March and from January to February. So it does make it feel like it's leveling off a little bit, even though the prices have gone up a little bit. The median sales price was $386,000, which is basically right on point with what it was last month, and it's up 5.8% from last year. Now, if we zoom in on single family homes, the average sales price was $520,000, which was up 2.3% from last month and up 10.6% from last year. And the median for single family homes was $470,000, which again is 0% increase from last month and 10.6% increase from last year. And now going over to the condos, we were sitting at $232,000, which was down 3.7% from last month and up 4.5% from last year. And the median sitting at $215,000 was down 2.2% from last month and up 2.4% from last year. So even though we're getting through some of that excess condo inventory, from an average price perspective, it's not particularly strong. Now, duplex and row houses, we were sitting at an average price of $427,000, which was up 5.3% from last month and up 19.6% from last year. And the median was sitting at $395,000, which was up 0.9% from last month and 15.2% from last year. Now, if we just look at new listings in Edmonton, we had 3,519 new listings this month, which was up 10.9% from last month, and also 11,000 so far for the year, which is up 11.8% for the year. Now, if we look over at sales volume, again, you'll see that we had lower sales volume. We had 2,118 sales for the whole month in Edmonton, which is down 11% from last month, and we are up year over year though. So we had 7,160 sales so far for the year, which is up almost 10% for the year. Our inventory in Edmonton is sitting just over 5,000 at the end of the month, with 5,090 properties available. The high rollers are the same as what they were for the greater Edmonton area, since they were probably all in Edmonton. Now, for days on market for single family homes, we were at 23 days on market for the year so far, whereas last year we were sitting at 30. For condos, we're at 46 days right now, and we were at 54 days last year. Duplexes and row houses, we're sitting at 25 days when we were at 39 last year. And if you throw that all together, we're sitting at 31 days, average days on market, when last year we were at 39. So now we're going to switch back to looking at the greater Edmonton area again, and we're going to look at the home price index first. So the benchmark price for all of the greater Edmonton area and all property types was $377,000, which is up 1.9% from last month and up 9.4% from last year. Now the average sales price was at $417,000, which I think we showed this before, was up 0.7% month over month and up 7.1% year over year. So you can see that the benchmark price changes look higher than the average sales price changes. The benchmark price, it's measured a little bit differently, and I believe it's a bit of a lagging indicator. They are using repeat sales, but it is very good information. You can see like the average was at 417, but the benchmark is at 377. So for the benchmark, they've basically labeled and identified what would represent a benchmark home in the greater Edmonton area, which would almost be like the most average home is almost how I would describe it, even though that's not quite correct. I still haven't figured out the best way to describe it, but they essentially figure out the attributes of what their benchmark home is, and then they track the value of that home over time that has those attributes. So it's a little bit different than the actual average price, so it's good to look at. Now, if the median sales price was sitting at $397,000, which was up 0.4% month over month and up 7.2% year over year. Now, if we look at the benchmark prices for different property types, for single family, it was at $458,000, which was up 2% from last month and up 11% from last year. And for apartments, it was sitting at $183,000, which was up 1.6% from last month and down 0.9% from last year. So you can see that shows a bit of a different picture than some of the other stats I was showing you. For apartments, I think the average prices were actually down month over month, but up year over year. And this is kind of showing a slightly different picture, that they're up a little bit from last month, but down from last year. So depending on which stats you look at, it can give you a different impression, which I guess would be a good opportunity for me to let you know that this can give you a good overall view of what's kind of going on in the market in Edmonton and surrounding areas. But the best way for me to help you is actually if you reach out to me directly. And you can reach me at 780-819-5508. You can either text me or call me, or you can email me at trevor@trevortardif.com, or go to booktrevornow.com, select a time on my calendar, and then I will call you. I can give you a free consultation regardless of whether you're looking at buying or selling, answer any questions that you have, and I can also guide you and give you specific advice based on your unique situation. You know, the price point you're looking at, the property type, the areas, what are your goals, your timeline, different things like that. I'm going to give you different advice based on what you tell me. So I definitely recommend reaching out, and I can help you a little bit better than just this sort of general overview. Now, I think we still didn't talk about townhouses. Townhouses, the benchmark price was sitting at $223,000, which was up 1.6% month over month and up 4.6% year over year. Okay, we got one more section here. Now we're just looking at the City of Edmonton home price index and average prices again. So the benchmark price for the City of Edmonton was $358,000, which is up 2% from last month and up 9.7% from last year. The average sales price was at $412,000, which is just up 0.6% from last month and up 5.9% from last year. And the median sales price is up, it's at $386,000, which is equal to what it was last month, but it is up 5.8% from last year. Now, if we look at the benchmark price, again, this is using the home price index, for single family homes was $456,000 in April, which was up 2.2% month over month and up 11.9% from last year. And for apartments, the benchmark price was $181,000, which was up 1.5% from last month and down 1.1% from last year. Then we've just got townhouses that were sitting at $216,000, which was up 1.2% from last month and up 4.8% from last year. So I know that was a lot of stats, a lot to sort of take in. Definitely seeing a bit of a shift in the Edmonton real estate market. You can see that the price trend, looking at any of these graphs, whether you're looking at the greater Edmonton area, we had a pretty good run. Basically just since the beginning of the year is when we saw some big increases in prices. So even though that acceleration has sort of slowed down, doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to stop, but it's going to be hard to say what kind of impact these increased interest rates have on the real estate market. I'm definitely hearing that it's affecting other markets like in Vancouver and Toronto, where things were hot, and I've actually heard of some price drops happening or not quite as many multiple offers happening in some of those markets. Edmonton is a much different market, so there's a lot of headlines out there that are talking about, is the Canadian real estate market going to roll over, or is it going to go into a downturn right now? It's hard to take the stats as a whole for Canada and apply that to Edmonton or apply that to Vancouver or any individual market. What you should really be doing is looking at what's going on in each market, because it is definitely regional. And if you just look at what's happening overall, you might make some assumptions that might not necessarily apply to the local market that you're looking at. So that's something I'll be looking at here more in future videos. So if you want to stay up to date on what's happening in the Edmonton real estate market, as well as looking at bigger picture in Canada as well, then make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. And if you want to watch more videos on the market, you can check out this playlist over here, and over here you can subscribe as well. So thanks so much for watching, and I will see you on the next video.